Happy New Year and welcome back to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett. I'm joined by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hey, Stephen, how are you? Happy New Year, my friend, and looking forward to another year of Mac Power Users.
Yeah, it's here. It's January. It's very exciting. It was 75 degrees here the other day because weather doesn't make any
Nice,
sense.
nice.
It was like a brief window into your life in Southern California.
Yeah, we had like a week ago, it was like up to 80, which was
Yeah.
not really cool for this time of year. We want
Mm-mm.
we want it cooler, but we got rain coming into town this New Year's Eve, and it's all good. My daughter she does entertainment for Disney, and one of her big projects this year is the New Year's Eve at Disneyland. She helps like coordinate all that. So we were going to go in and just check on the kid at work, but it's supposed to rain. Now we got to decide, are we going to go there in the rain?
You just send her a text that you're thinking about her.
Though it's kind of nice in the rain there.
Yeah.
As long as you dress for it.
Yeah. So Happy New Year is the big bit of housekeeping. But today on More Power Users, which is the member version of the show, it's longer
Yes.
and ad-free. We're going to do a little check-in on your workshop. So you do a lot of woodworking and you have some new gear, and I am very excited to learn about it.
I pulled the trigger on a thing that I can't believe I did. I can't believe I bought a thing, Stephen. I don't want to get into it right now, but I can't believe I did it. And now I can't wait for it to arrive.
And unlike the Ubiquity thing, this is not my fault.
Yes, it's not your fault at all. There you go.
Which is nice.
In fact, maybe I can return the favor. I don't know. I'm going to try.
Oh, boy.
I think you need one of these things, Steve.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. What's on the slate for today?
Today, we want to talk about focus modes and notifications. It seems like the perfect topic as we head into the new year. We did a lot of reflective stuff last week, and I think when you've got that fresh new year feeling inside of you, it's a great time to stop and think about your relationship with your technology. As big a fans of Apple gear as we are, we both really strongly believe in controlling your distractions in life and letting you focus on what's important. In a couple of weeks, I'll be announcing an update to the productivity field guide, which kind of goes down that alley. And a big piece of that with your technology is mastering focus modes and notifications. And Apple's constantly evolving those things. So we're going to talk about the core technologies today. We're also going to talk about some best habits and tips and how we're using these features to get our devices out of our head a little bit.
Yeah, the New Year is a great time for this. And with your productivity field guide stuff, I know you've been thinking about it a lot. And really going through this, like really kind of in detail, it's been a few years since we've touched on this topic. I do think Apple has made some progress in how these things work. And so we're going to start with focus modes. And this is something that you use more than I do. But I went through here and I built a few in preparation for the show. And do we want to start with kind of the mechanics of how they work?
Yeah, I do, but I like to get hippie for just a minute.
Sure.
I just think that like there really is a thing. If you look at their literature, there's what they call an attention crisis ongoing right now, particularly with young people because they grew up with this stuff, but old people too. If Exhibit A is the next time you go to a supermarket, just pay attention to the people around you in line that are waiting for their turn.
Yeah.
And look for any of them that aren't looking at their phone. And that's like the unicorn these days when you go to a supermarket. We can't have a spare moment anymore that we don't want to plug our eyeballs into this distraction machine. And that's really a problem for us. It's affecting our ability, it's cognitively changing us. And Apple, I think to its credit, has some responsibility for this, but they also are taking steps with these features. And I'm always shocked because I do polls out to the MacSparky Labs and even to my general newsletter audience, how few people are using these features. So before we even get into it, I just want to say, look, if you haven't used them yet and you're feeling bad, don't beat yourself up. You're not alone. Most people are not using these things.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, these features can really help you kind of fight back against that attention crisis that we're going through right now. They are not hard to set up. You can set these up in a few minutes, and there's some very basic settings that get you 90% of the way there. And I use them constantly. And I hope coming out of this episode, my goal for you is to be willing to at least give it a chance. Give me 60 days and just try to use these things, because if you want to push back against this thing where they're trying to sell your attention, this is a really big step that you can take right now. And Apple's giving you the tools to do it. So do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if you're not in this world, even starting with some simple do not disturb stuff can be really useful. And years ago, they added the feature of like, hey, run do not disturb for an hour. One that I use a lot is leave do not disturb on until I leave this location. So if I'm going to an appointment or I'm having breakfast with somebody, I will very often flip that switch. And then when I get in my truck and it's time to go home, the phone comes out of do not disturb on its own as I leave. And that has been something that, it's super simple. It's not a full-blown focus mode, but that's a good place to start, I think, is understanding what do not disturb can do, because it really has a lot of great options.
And just think about that practice for a minute. Like you're meeting a friend for breakfast or a coworker, and you take the time to put it in do not disturb for an hour. That means for the entire hour, you'll be focused on that person. Your phone will not be beeping and buzzing, and you'll be able to do the job you're there to do better.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy, and it's so rude to do the opposite. I had breakfast with somebody recently. The reason I latched onto that was because the guy, while we're talking, he's looking at his phone. He's like doing stuff on his phone. At one point, I started teasing him about it. I said, are you playing Angry Birds? What's more important than me? And he didn't I don't think he really appreciated it, but hopefully the point got home. When you sit down with someone to have a meal, just pay attention to that person.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
So that'll be the first link in the show notes is the do not disturb, which is, it's funny. Focus modes kind of grew out of that. Like there's a lot of similar controls now.
And as a Mac Power user, with just a little bit of extra effort, you can go so far beyond focus mode. So
yes.
I guess let's get into the mechanics of it.
Okay.
Now that I've been preaching long enough.
Yeah. So when you go to focus, which is an area in settings, and we're mostly talking about the iPhone today, but focus modes can be shared across your devices, which is nice. That's what I do. If I'm got my phone in do not disturb, I want my Mac to be there too. So I let them sync. But you have a bunch of toggles you can switch, and I think people who are critical of this system view all of these options as maybe overwhelming, or like a reason like, oh, this is too complicated. And I think if you spend some time looking through those options, we're going to talk through a bunch of them, and then know that you can tweak them in the future. What you come to appreciate, I think, is that this is actually a very powerful system. And yes, there are lots of options, but that means you can really fine tune it with some work. And so kind of at the high level, what you're doing with a focus mode is you are telling your device how you want it to act in certain situations. And of course, that covers notifications, but it also covers things like the wallpaper or even the home screens that you have available to you on your iPhone. So it's your same phone, but it's going to act in different ways in different situations. The easiest example I can think of is having a focus mode for work or for home. So when I'm at work, I want notifications from these types of apps, these people, but if I'm at home, I don't want notifications from those apps. And so that's sort of the first high level thing is you want notifications silenced or allowed from people and apps. And you go into focus modes, you can set a custom one. Apple has some kind of pre-made ones for you that I don't know. How do you feel about the options you get when you go to set up a focus mode for the first time?
I understand why they exist. They want to make it as easy as possible for you to get on the road here. And And I just want to back up a little bit when you're talking about how people say it's too complicated.
Okay.
This has evolved a bit over time, and they've added complication to make it more useful. But I call BS on people saying this is too complicated because it's not that complicated. I mean, if you take the amount of time you spend watching one episode of a dumb TV show, 30 minutes, you will have this mastered. And that's it. I would almost argue, one extended seating in the commode, right? You could probably have it mastered. But this is not that hard. And we're going to walk through it on the show. If you'd like to master it right now, pull your phone out while you're listening. Obviously, don't do that if you're driving. But it's just not that hard. Yeah. So that being said, though, because I'm sure Apple has better numbers than I do, and I'm sure they also see almost nobody's using this, they're trying to give you an easy way to just push a button and have it working for you. But I do think the real power comes out of mastering it and kind of going from there.
Yeah.
Let me talk about the people part of it, because I think that's the key feature, right? I mean, notifications from people are what you're massively trying to control with a system. And I'll tell a little story. I think I told it on the show at the time, but it bears repeating. When we were coming out of COVID, once again, my family loves Disneyland. So we decided to all take a family trip to Disneyland. We hadn't done it for a year and a half because it had been closed. And at that time, the passes weren't open. My wife had been laid off, so we didn't have the employee access anymore. We bought tickets. It was like $600 to get everybody in for the day. And I went in with the family at like 2:00. My phone started blowing up from one of my legal clients because he was having some sort of problem that there wasn't a damn thing I could do anything about at the time, but it just totally hijacked my brain. And I sat there for like 2 or 3 hours stressing on his problems after I'd spent all this money to be there with my family. And it just reminded me of how dumb I was for not having a focus mode when I'm at a theme park. That's what led to me creating a Disneyland focus mode, because I don't want people interrupting me when I'm having fun with my family. But that's just a good example. And it's all about people blocking. So the way they do this is they have 2 different filters, and you just got to think about it. And each one has its place. So the first filter is, say, block everybody except the people that I allow, right? That's the one I use for the Disneyland one. It's like there's only certain people that can get a hold of me, when I'm there, and it's everybody else, you're out. You're not going to get in the way of me spending time with my family.
Yeah.
Then there's the flip side of that, where you say, no, let everybody in, but there's certain people I don't want bothering me, and we all know that. Like we all know a few people like that. Like that person always calls me on Saturdays and wants to talk about blah blah blah. I don't want that person bugging me. So you can say, okay, I'll let the whole world in, but this one guy is out. And that's the first level of the filter. And it's a very easy concept, gang. You either let them all in except a few, or you block them all except a few. And that's it. I mean, Don't tell me that's complicated. Just make a big boy decision about which way you're going, depending on what you're doing. Like with work, you may want to say, block everybody except the coworkers or some of my clients. And with home, you may want to say, let everybody in except the guy who from work who always calls me on Saturday. So you just make a big boy decision about that, and it's not permanent. You can always switch it around if that doesn't work for you.
I agree with you. That's where people should start. And there are some nice affordances in this section where you are choosing people. You can like when you go in here and say allow notifications from, it has a bunch of people that it predetermines. Best I can tell, those are people that you interact with often. It's not necessarily your favorites, but it's, like in here, like is a friend of mine who we don't text a ton, but we've been talking a lot over the holidays, and like they're in this list. So it's giving you some suggestions, and you can switch back and forth and combine allow notifications from people and silence from others. Do you do mixing and matching like that? Or like when you're setting up a focus mode, do you say this one is everyone's turned off except these people? Like how do you approach the allow and deny list kind of being intermingled.
I think I generally lean toward the deny all people except setting for work related stuff. Like I have a focus mode for podcasting, and the only two people that can reach me right now are you and Mike Schmitz,
Mhm.
because those are the two people I podcast with. They do have the ability to break a hole in that and say if they make repeated calls, they
Yeah.
can get through. And I kind of told my wife that. I said, look, when I'm recording, I don't really want you calling me, but if you break your leg or whatever, just call twice and it'll get through. And you also have it where you can set it where people on your VIP list can get through. But when I'm podcasting, I don't do that either. I don't let that through either because, again, my sister's on there. I don't need them calling me while I'm sitting here talking to you. So,
Yeah.
so my podcasting is very restrictive. Whereas I've got others, like the personal one for me, I let everybody in except for people who I feel like violate my personal space. And we all know a few people like that,
Sure.
like work-related people who don't like understand the limits, and those people get banned.
Yeah.
And
like Casey Liss, for instance. No, I'm just
no,
kidding.
Casey,
Just
not
kidding.
Casey. I'm always going to talk to Casey, but but back when I was practicing law, that was a big list because a lot of clients, you tell a client, say, hey, I'm going on vacation. If an emergency comes up, I'll take your call, but don't call me unless it's an emergency. And then they call you about something really dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, you're on the list. And list got smaller when I stopped practicing law. But
Sure.
but so it just depends on the context. But I think that's the first level of this stuff. And all you need to do is for your various focus modes is just go through and answer that question. Is this one where I want to be real restrictive or do I want to be real permissive? And then you can then you can decide the margin cases after that decision.
Yeah. And if someone is silenced, their notification just goes to notification center. So you do have like an escape hatch if you feel like you need to check. It's not like they just disappear into the ether, but you're not going to get that notification saying that, so and so has sent you a message.
And Apple even has a feature called intelligent breakthrough
Yeah.
and silencing, which allows priority notifications to interrupt you and people specifically allowed to break through, which I generally keep on for most focus modes, but it's not on for podcasting because once again, we're sitting here recording. I don't want something out of my wife's decision about buying Girl Scout cookies to get in the way of us finishing the show, right?
Sure. Apps have the same sort of set of options. So you can silence notifications or allow notifications from certain apps on your device. So if it's a personal focus mode and if your work is like mine and it's all in Slack, maybe I don't want notifications from Slack to interrupt me when I'm in, that personal focus mode. Again, you have the ability for that intelligent breakthrough. And you can allow time-sensitive notifications through. So we're going to talk about time-sensitive notifications a little bit later in the show. But if you have that set up, if you say that you have, your weather app sending you time-sensitive notifications, if it is not in your allowed list, then you can still have them come through. Now that's dependent on being responsible with your time-sensitive notifications, right? But that is an additional layer on top of the allow and silence lists for apps.
Yeah, and this is also subject to your actual notification rules, which we're going to talk about in the second half of the show. So assuming you do a good job of filtering notifications at the top level, you're not going to have that many busting through at your focus mode level.
Yeah. So that's the notification sort of structure of focus modes. You do have some additional options for how those notifications are handled. If you want to see them, if you want to see silence notifications on the lock screen or just in the notification center, do you want to see badges? Do you want to silence notifications always or just when the phone is locked? So maybe if I'm in my personal mode and I'm on my phone on a weekend, hey, let them through, but as soon as I lock my phone and put it in my pocket, then they're silenced again. For me, I just leave that one on always. I feel like the focus mode is the top level, and I don't need or want my phone to act differently. But maybe your situation is different. Maybe what I've thought of in this case is if you have a personal phone and a work phone, and maybe you're on your work phone on Saturday because something's going on that you really need to deal with, maybe it's useful for notifications to be silenced only when locked because you're on your phone and it's unlocked at the moment. So again, you've got some options there to tweak how these things work.
They give you a lot of ways to turn the dials, but I think the first level of just choosing the big filter, do I let everybody in? Do I let nobody in except? And then just be kind of restrictive on this stuff. When you're first learning to use it, be okay with a couple of calls getting missed, right? As you're working through this. I mean, your attention is what's at stake. So that is not a trivial win. And be willing to be more restrictive than you think you should be. That's my general advice.
Yeah.
Although maybe I'm bad at this. I mean, I know, like, even when we first started working together, you said, hey, how come you don't return? I mean, I even did it to you. I didn't reply to your messages right away. I don't even see them because the way I work, I'm so restrictive about this stuff. I just don't, I'm not good about it. I mean, to my friends, they know they have to call me if it's something that's important right away. Yeah, I'm being a little waffly on this. Maybe I'm too restrictive, but I don't know. Go for it. If this is a problem for you, be like me. Be a jerk for a while and don't respond to things.
Yeah, I think the most important sort of, to go back to the hippie stuff for a second, is focus modes and notifications are a process. Like, I never view this as a finished part of my setup, right?
Yeah.
Because I have applications change over time, or I'm working with somebody, like for me, right? In September, when we're doing our St. Jude campaign, like, there's a whole bunch of people who need to get a hold of me way more than normal. And so I may treat my device differently in that time frame than I would, the other 11 months of the year. So it's a process. It is an ongoing thing I think for a lot of people. But it really can be useful. Now, we've got notifications, but you can also customize your lock and home screen pages depending on your focus mode. So I know our friend Mike Hurley does this in his recording focus mode. He has his phone, the lock screen, cycle through photos of his wife and kid, and just as he's recording, he can see that out of the corner of his eye, and it makes him happy. I'm not one to change my lock screen based on focus mode, but the thing that I really do like is the ability to change your home screen. So for several releases now on iOS, if you long press those little dots at the bottom of the home screen, you can create a home screen and then have it hidden. So my example for this that I've really fine-tuned over the years is that I have a travel home screen. It has a bunch of apps and widgets on it that I don't use unless I'm traveling. So things like Flighty and Lyft and Uber, and I have Apple Maps and Google Maps available to me. I got a bunch of airline apps on there. I don't need that around all the time. So that home screen is off like 99% of the time. But I have a focus mode for travel, and all it does is it turns that home screen on, and that way, if I am flying that day, I have all of those things available to me just a swipe away, right? So we've all done it, right? You're like going through the airport, you're trying to look at something. The last thing I want to do in that moment, that really high stress moment, is to have, I'm in Spotlight trying to find the app I'm looking for. And so the custom home screen thing is really cool. And if you have personal stuff and work stuff on your phone, right, you could have a home screen that has all your work apps on it, and that home screen just disappears during a personal focus mode, for example. Those apps are still there. They're still available to you, right? It's not like screen time where those apps are restricted. They're just not on the home screen. So you're not seeing them. You're not necessarily thinking about them. And for me, at least, between the lock screen, home screen, you can also do this with your watch face. The home screen customization is where, for me, focus modes really come into play.
Yeah, so I do that, but I also do the lock screen as well.
Okay.
And the way I do it is I have them color coded. So, the whole idea is just to trigger my brain. One of the side benefits of a focus mode is switching focus modes as a way to context shift your brain. So like when I go from personal focus mode to Max Parkey focus mode, when I throw that switch, it's like I'm also, I think, throwing a switch inside my brain saying, okay, buddy, now focus on the work and stop thinking about, new gear for the shop or, doing something with your wife. Just, work on the work now. And the same goes the opposite direction. When I switch it back to personal, then I can stop thinking about the work. So there's like a cognitive element to this for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I set the backgrounds of the desktop, the wallpaper, the lock screen, all in these kind of color coded areas where they lock in. For instance, for me, because I'm right now in podcast mode, the background on my phone is orange.
Yes.
And the watch that I've got on, the watch face has got orange in it. And like just everything I look at is a reminder of, oh yeah, right now you're focused on podcasting. And that's another level deep of this stuff. And I'm not sure how many people are going to go that far down the rabbit hole, but it actually helps me to do that.
Yeah, we've talked about that, I think, in our time tracking episode years ago, that you and I both tend to use color or attach a color to a project, right? So in reminders or in timery or even in day one, right? Like I have colors that mean certain things, right? Like 512 pixels is orange, even though that's not the color of the website anymore. Relay is this like blue-green color, right? It's useful to me as well to attach those things. But for me, for whatever reason, the lock screen that hasn't clicked. But even if you wanted to have the same wallpaper, you could have multiple lock screens with different widgets on them, right? So maybe your travel lock screen is still the same photo of your family, but instead of your regular widgets, you have a time zone widget, right? And maybe a shortcut to Flighty on your lock screen. So it can be about the color, it can be about the images, and it should be, but widgets can also play, I think, an important part here to give you not only that reminder of what you're supposed to be doing, but also the tools that you need at any given moment, depending on what mode you're in.
Yeah. And it is nice, like when like the social media app related to work only shows up on your phone when you're in work focus mode. And in a way that kind of helps you again with the problem we were talking about earlier, the attention crisis of like, well, if the app doesn't show up on your home screen when you're in your personal mode, the work app, and you use these focus modes and you go to look for the app and you're like, oh, wait a second, I'm in personal mode. Do I really need that? Do I really need to be going and checking the work status board right now? Can I go back to just being a normal person for another hour? And I think there's something to that, So, I really like the way Apple has done this overall. I mean, sometimes we're critical of features they've got, or we feel like they haven't gone far enough. I really think Apple's given everybody, as of today, the tools they need to implement a very thoughtful focus mode system.
Yeah. One thing that I would like to see more of, and this is not on Apple, this is on, well, maybe it's on Apple. I haven't looked at these APIs, but you have focus filters. And so these are, for lack of a better term, content filters for applications. So some good examples are mail and calendar. Maybe in my personal focus mode, I don't want to see my work email. I don't want to see my work calendar. I think those are great and really useful. And I use that so I don't see my work email on the weekend. I love it. And if I need to see it, I can just bounce out of the focus mode real quick and check something if I need to. But they're not super widely adopted and they're not evenly adopted. So just looking on my phone, the apps that I have that support it, some of them, it feels like the developers adopted because it was a new Apple technology and they should. And I totally understand that, right? But I don't necessarily need, I'm going to pick on good links. I love good links. That's why I'm picking on them. Like, I don't need to filter tags in my read it later list based on my focus mode. Like, it's cool that they built it, but that one is not, for me at least, super life-changing. Whereas some apps that I think would be maybe more useful, like I'll pick on Slack because I use and pay for it. It would be great, like if you're a person who has some personal Slacks and work Slacks, like I do, I've got a Slack with a bunch of friends in it, and like we chat actually a lot on the weekends in there. But it means that if I want those notifications, in Slack, I could go in and tell each work Slack that, oh, I don't want notifications here or there, but it's very sort of complicated. A focus filter would be a top level thing. So I could say, I want them from this server, but not these other servers. So they're a little unevenly implemented, and I would like to see developers where, you have things like this where you may have intermixed content from sort of different parts of your life to support this a bit better.
Yeah, agreed. Looking through some of the additional settings, let's talk a little bit about triggering focus modes. Apple's given you a lot of options. One is you can just manually turn it off and on. And I'm going to give away the plot here. That's my favorite way. I think turning focus modes on manually makes it easier. And I think, like I said earlier, that cognitive switch that I get from that, I think is beneficial. But you can also automate this stuff. You can set it by time. Like you can say every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., put me in work focus mode, or you can trigger them with shortcuts. You can trigger them with Apple scripts. They even have a feature where they try to figure it out for you. And it's like smart, I forget the exact language of it, smart trigger, where it turns it on when it thinks you should have it on.
Yeah.
Smart activation turns on automatically. I'm not a fan of smart activation. I don't like the idea of my focus modes changing without me knowing it.
Same. That is off for me, and I agree with you. Mine is a manual process, except for the personal one or the weekend one is what I call it. And the only thing that one does is turn off my work email. Like everything else stays the same.
Yeah.
But you can also trigger by location, which for me and you isn't really helpful as we work from home. But you could say, okay, when I'm at the office, then I want this focus mode on, and when I leave the office, I want it to turn off. And you can also trigger by application. So if you open, in fact, that the little helper text in the UI is example, when I open books, or like when I open the Kindle app, then turn a bunch of stuff off, right? Like if I'm using my phone or my iPad or my Mac in a very particular way with a particular application, then I want this focus mode to be on. For me, that one doesn't really click because I don't, for one, I don't read on my phone and iPad very much, but I don't know, like I tend to bounce between apps. And so again, I want my focus modes to be a bit more intentional than that, but maybe that works really well for you, right? Maybe it's really important for you that, hey, if I have this app open, like if you're using your phone, the example I thought of was if you're using your phone as a white noise machine at night, like when I open dark noise, then enter this focus mode. And then that's the trigger for other things to happen. So it may be useful to you, but for me, at least, that one doesn't really have a big place.
Yeah, agreed. One piece of this, I think the most common resistance I get to telling people, people say, oh, I want to do it, except there's this one person, my wife or my boss, and I just don't want to ever not hear from that person, and I don't want this focus mode thing to get in the way and get me in trouble somehow. There is a feature that I don't think a lot of people realize exists. It's called emergency bypass. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Stephen, but if you go into you have to go into the contacts app for a person. And then when you go down where you select their ringtone, there's a toggle there for emergency bypass. And you can just click it and then they always get through. It ignores focus mode, silent mode, everything. And, that I kind of hesitate to tell people because I don't want everybody to make everything an emergency bypass. Then what's the point? But if you've got someone you absolutely maybe your doctor's number or something like that, right? You always want them to get through. You can set an emergency bypass and that gets you through it.
Yeah, it's I've got my wife there and my parents, and that is it.
Yeah,
I love everyone else in my life, but if one of those two people is calling me, I need to pick up, right? And during the day when I may not have a focus mode on, or I do not have do not disturb on, that's fine. But really, it's if one of my parents calls me in the middle of the night, something is happening,
Yeah.
right? They're not
Yeah.
going just to check in on how the kid's day was at school, right? Like
Yeah.
there's an emergency. And so that's a great bit of feedback. And of course, you mentioned earlier that if someone calls twice, there's an option to let them come through. And I've told people that, like I've told my parents that. I don't know if they remember it, but the emergency bypass thing is it's a really useful thing. And I agree, like that list should be short, right? That list should be very particular. I've got a buddy of mine who works in infosec, and sometimes he's on call, and like if he's on call and he gets a call from work, like we've been at sporting events, and he's like, my work phone is ringing, I'm on call, I have to go, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of people have those types of situations, and the bypass mode can be good.
Yeah. And then, sorry, rounding back to the manual trigger piece of it.
Sure.
One of the things that I think is really nice, and you talked earlier about, you can throw a setting to have this sync across devices, which you absolutely should do. I've never had any problem with that not working. And what that allows you to do is then turn on your focus mode no matter where you're at. Like I have on, the system settings on the Mac, I've put the focus mode icon into my menu bar so I can click it there. I can do it on my watch. I can do it on my phone. All my devices are connected. And so I can set a focus mode with any device, and that, having it sync across devices, even if you're not that interested in using it on your Mac, being able to trigger it on your Mac is actually quite useful.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We've talked a lot about how we're using them. We've talked about some of the things that we want from focus modes, or like Apple or third parties to take on. Do you have any other particular wish list items that you'd like to see added to this?
More focus modes. They limit you to 10, which feels very arbitrary, especially since some of them are programmed by Apple. So those count against your 10. I'm right at or around that limit at all times. I'd love to have a separate focus mode for Mac Power users and for the Focus podcast, because when I'm on this show, I don't want Mike calling me. When I'm on that show, I don't want you calling me, right? And I don't know why they have this arbitrary limit. It seems to me like they could have made that 50 as easily as they could have made it 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that need the feature will use it, and the people that don't go that far won't need it. So I'd like more. The other thing is I really like we were talking earlier, of setting up home screens and like all the customization you can do on the mobile stuff, the iPad and the iPhone. That's less so on the Mac. But wouldn't it be cool if I could have a custom wallpaper in my Mac depending on what focus mode I was in?
Yeah.
I'd like that. And it seems doable, and it's just not there. They have a wallpaper switcher. They have focus modes. It seems to me like you could connect those two somehow. And when I go into Mac Power Users, and I get an orangish background on my home screen or on my wallpaper, and that would be cool.
Yeah.
But in general, I think this thing is very mature and very powerful. And I have nitpicks, but overall, they've covered it. Like when they first released it, I forget if it only excluded or it only allowed, but they in the next version, they allowed you to choose between those two. Like all the big things they have solved, in my opinion.
Yeah, one thing I think that could be interesting to keep an eye on here is how Apple Intelligence could interface with this. They have a reduce interruptions focus mode that, this is quoting from Apple, it understands the content of your notifications and shows you the most important ones, but silences notifications that are less important. And I ran this for like a month or something when it first was available, and it wasn't for me. Like I want more control over this, but I could see systems like this getting better, or I think what would be interesting is if Apple Intelligence could suggest things in the focus mode editor. And so if you're setting up a personal focus mode, it could offer up like, hey, you've got Outlook on your phone or using Outlook for work email. Like let's turn that off, right? Helping people through the system by intelligently looking at their apps and how they're used, I think could be really compelling. And I think would take some of the learning curve out of it. But Apple Intelligence isn't there yet, but I certainly would think that it could be useful in this area.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by 1Password. Go to onepassword.com/MPU today. Get 20% off your plan. A lot of your world today is digital. Your security should be too. 1Password is the industry-leading security software that ensures your sensitive information is always protected and gives you access to your actionable alerts and threats. While security is complicated, 1Password isn't. 1Password always knows your password, even when you don't. So you can lock down your life's most valuable essentials. 1Password makes it easy to create, manage, and use an unlimited number of strong passwords. And that creation part is particularly clever with 1Password. It allows you to create unique, strong passwords, and it allows you to set the parameters of how those passwords are generated. For instance, if you don't ever want any confusingly similar characters like the number 0 and the capital O, you can tell it to do that. You can also have it create a very secure but easily memorizable password with a string of random words. I really think the 1Password password generator is unmatched. And you can share those passwords with confidence, sharing logins, credit cards, Wi-Fi codes with appropriate permissions. The other person doesn't even have to be a 1Password customer to be able to get that sharing. And they have the Watchtower service, which scans your saved items and flags known data breaches. We can reuse passwords and websites you use that support passkeys. We're heading into a new year, gang. Why not take advantage of this 1Password deal to take control of your digital security? You won't regret it. That URL is onepassword.com/MPU for 20% off your plan. I've been a subscriber to the family plan since they first announced it. Got my whole family on it. Onepassword.com/MPU is that link one more time. Go check it out, and thank you, 1Password, for all of your support of the Mac Power Users.
So let's switch gears to notifications. These things are definitely hand in hand. And like focus modes, the notification system has a lot of options. And we're not going to be able to touch all of them, but I want to hit the main ones. And I want to start with the lock screen. I think for basically everybody, the lock screen is where we deal with notifications very often. I'm certainly not a big notification center user. Like I've got friends, I think Mike Hurley does this, or at least he used to. Basically, he sent everything to the notification center, so he would just like scroll down when he wanted to see what was going on. But the lock screen is sort of, I think, sort of the main stage for notifications. And you've got 3 views. This has been around for a while. You have count, which is a little line text at the bottom that says, hey, you have 4 notifications or whatever. Doesn't actually show you them. You have the stack, where notifications are grouped by app. That's what I use. So like I can tap into a stack of, let's say, notifications from my 3D printer. And like I can just see the few things it's wanted to tell me. And they're not taking up much space. They're all stacked together. And then you have sort of the classic list view, which is just, here's everything in reverse chronological order. To me, that's too much. Like I don't need to see them that way. But that's the only way there was for a long time. You do get to see a preview of the content of those notifications. This can be really helpful, and I leave them on. But the always on display, I think, does kind of change the game here for some people. Like maybe you don't want to have notifications visible to anyone if your phone is just out on the counter, right? Maybe it's a security thing for work, or maybe it's personal stuff. And what's really cool is you can actually make the preview. I thought it was global, but it's actually, you can do it by app. So you have a top level default, and then you can say, actually, I want to see previews for everything but messages. And then message, you can say, never show me the preview, or only show me the preview when my phone is unlocked. So you've got some customization there. What do you do? Do you leave previews on?
Yeah, generally. I'm no longer a lawyer, so my privacy concerns are not as high as they used to be.
Yeah.
But, I just like really am stingy with notifications as a breed of things. Like, this really is related to my discussion of focus modes earlier. I don't want a lot of of interruptions. I don't want my phone tapping on my shoulder unless for a really good reason.
Yeah.
And Apple has done a really good job over the years of improving the variety of responses you can do to notifications. How far do you let it? How hard do you let it press, tap your shoulder? Is it just going to show up on the screen for a few seconds, or is it going to lock itself on the screen until you manually dismiss it? They've got all these things in there. But to me, the big one is this something I even want at all? And my favorite setting is, allow notifications switch. If you turn that off, you don't get any of this stuff, And so I think of it as the big filter. Like when a notification comes in, do I need this information or will I act on this information?
Yeah.
And if you've got a list of 10 items and you just blow past 9 of them because you don't care anything that app tells you, and we all have that, right? It happens to us. And the stuff inflates as you install new apps. They always want in. You always have that optimistic feeling with a new app. Oh, of course you can notify me. You're going to change my life, right? But no, if you find yourself blowing past them, then just turn them off and just don't allow them at all. And I'm kind of extreme, I guess, in that regard, but I really want every notification that shows up, whether I've got it on the lock screen, home screen, message center, I want it to earn its place. And if it doesn't, then we've got that great feature Apple gave us with the swipe.
Yeah, the swipe is huge. So on the lock screen, you can swipe right to left and you get a bunch of options. So you can just clear it, which just removes the notification from the list. But you can also manage the notification itself. So you can say, hey, maybe the group thread's blowing up right now. I'm busy. I want to mute notifications for 1 hour from that app. You can mute notifications from the app for the rest of the day. So like if you're traveling, right, this is kind of where I think about this one of like, okay, like I don't need X, Y, or Z because I'm not home. I'll see them tomorrow. You can add notifications to a summary, which we'll talk about in a second. But you can also turn them off. So right in the moment where you see that notification on your lock screen and you think, I just don't need these, then you can turn them off from there. You don't have to remember to go into settings and then notifications and then scroll the long list and find them. It's just, I can do it right from there. And I think that is maybe the best option Apple's add notifications, like in years, to be able to just turn them off from right there. Because you're right, there is this sort of I hadn't thought about it this way, but there is an optimistic sense when you install a new app. Like, it's going to change my life. It's going to change, the way I do something. Notifications is going to be great. And then you realize, well, maybe the developer sends notifications I don't want, or it's not as useful as I thought it would be. And you can make that call right then and there. It's very powerful.
Yeah. And the nice thing about that is when you're doing it from the notification, it really gives you a context. Like some apps, I allow notifications because they almost never notify me. And when they do, it's worth reading. But then some apps, they just notify, the developer takes advantage of you and abuses it. And then I nuke them from space. I swipe it and so I, turn off notifications, and then that's that. I never see it again. And having it, do it from the notification level allows you to actually see where the abusers are, or not even abusers, but ones that you're not interested in. The big advantage of all this means that when I do get a notification, I read it and pay attention to it because I get so few that the ones I get actually matter. It's just like flag status on task items. Like if you make everything have a due date or you flag everything, you don't notice the ones that actually matter. And the same thing goes to notifications. The more you flood yourself with notifications, the more likely you are to miss the one that could make a difference for you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think even for the apps that you have notifications on, there's a level of hierarchy there. So for instance, iOS can announce a notification to you. So if you have AirPods in or other compatible headphones like Beats, then Siri will chime in over, pause your podcast and music and say, hey, Carrot Weather says it's going to rain in 3 minutes or whatever it might be. I have very few things that can do that. In fact, Carrot Weather is one of the maybe two that I allow that to happen. Because if I'm on a walk or a bike ride and it's getting ready to rain, or there's a thunderstorm warning and I'm in the woods 10 miles from home, like, it would be good to know. And so the announcement, I think, is something that can be useful in small doses. You also have critical alerts. So critical alerts are, it's kind of like the breakthrough thing we talked about a second ago. Critical alerts will appear on the lock screen and play a sound regardless of focus mode or mute status. The only thing I have critical alerts turned on for is home. And the reason I do that is because you can have water sensors in HomeKit send a critical alert if they detect water. And you know what? If there's water under a sink in my house, I need to know about it right now. Like, John Syracuse said many years ago, and I repeat it all the time, moisture is the enemy of the homeowner, right? That's a big deal, right? If I got water in the pan under my hot water heater, like, I need to know what's going on. That's the only critical alert I have there, and because it can override anything, right? And so that is a button that I take very seriously in notifications. I don't want, and most apps don't offer critical alerts. You actually have to be I believe you have to be a certain type of application or a certain type of notification to even access that. But use it sparingly.
Yeah, like I'm okay with notifications. I don't want to sound like I hate all notifications, but I think it's a good feature. I just think it's abused too often.
Mm-hmm.
Like one that I was just looking through my list, one that I do that I'm sure a lot of people would find annoying is mine pesters me about medication. Like, take your meds, take your eye drops. And like, I want to be pestered about that.
Yeah.
And my point is that is the stuff a notification should work for me. I should, if I see that, I should say, oh, okay, yeah, it's time to stop and take your eye drops. And I just don't want the stuff that like I was just looking, I bought something from Best Buy like 6 months ago. And in my notification, we're going to talk about summaries in a minute, but in my summaries, I saw one from Best Buy trying to sell me something, right? Just because I bought something from them 6 months ago. So I just nuked it while you were talking. So like that one will not notify me at all anymore. And that will never be a problem again.
Yeah.
So that it's just a question of hygiene or gardening. The weeds will always sprout up. You need to keep pulling the weeds. But if you do that, you've got pretty flowers and your notifications will be helpful to you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like when I was going through mine, I realized that I have actually quite a few apps that have the ability to announce the notification. It's like, well, I don't need that from most of these things. And so I had more than I realized, right? And that's part of this too. This can get out of hand over time. And so I kind of view this as like, hey, every once in a while, I'm going to sit down and spend a few minutes, really look at this thing. Because again, like focus modes, this kind of is never done. Like it is something that will change over time for you. And so I think it can be good.
Well, I would argue that your focus modes will settle if you're paying attention over time. They will settle down and you'll get kind of the right mix. But notifications is all because you're always installing apps.
Yeah,
and notifications are always growing on you. It's like every time I cover it in the labs or do a podcast on it, I go through and audit mine. Then I should be doing this like twice a year. I shouldn't let it go, but I do. And even just making this show has been good for me because it allowed me to get rid of a bunch.
Yeah.
Even more so on the Mac. Like I am so stingy with notifications on the Mac because I don't want any interruptions when I'm working on my Mac because that is where I really do my hardest work. And I don't want things popping in on me all the time at all.
Yeah, I agree. A useful thing that I definitely take advantage of is notification summaries, which is kind of actually a confusing name given other features that have been added. But notification summaries, they allow you, it basically groups up your notifications and then delivers them at once, these scheduled summaries. And so you go in here and you can set the time that you want this to happen. So I actually have several. I have sort of 8 a.m., lunchtime, 4 p.m., and then one closer to bedtime. And so these are notifications that I want to see, but I don't need them in the moment. So, for instance, Parcel, right, the delivery tracking application, I find those notifications useful, but I don't need them in real time. But it may be useful for twice a day to see a scheduled summary, and Parcel is in there. Um, and even if you don't want to use scheduled summaries, I would encourage you to check out the user interface, because one thing it has is if you go in here, you tap scheduled summary, if you scroll down, it gives you a list of all the apps that you allow notifications from, and it tells you how many you've gotten over like a weekly average. And it can be shocking to see how many notifications you're getting from an app that you're not even thinking about, that you see and you dismiss sort of automatically. And you have a toggle right there. Hey, add this to a scheduled summary. Don't send these immediately. Send them at these preset times. And just seeing that list, it's kind of like the pickup list in Screen Time, which shows you what app you open first. It's like, good grief, I open messages first 90% of the time or something, right? It could be educational. So the weekly notification average, even if you don't use scheduled summary, can be a tool for insight in how you have your system set up. And you may realize, I actually don't need, I don't need wallet notifications immediately. Maybe those can go in my scheduled summary and I see them twice a day or whatever.
Yeah. Again, a big thumbs up for the summaries. It's a great way to allow you to keep apps on the list that you would otherwise ban, because you don't need to be tapped on the shoulder in the middle of work, but once or twice a day is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great middle ground. And like you, I'm a big enthusiast of that as well. Parcel's the perfect example of this. Like the weather app, I allow it to interrupt me at any time. I kind of want to know when it's going to rain. But the deliveries, no, I don't need you to tell me that it just got on a bus in Memphis.
Yeah. That's always Memphis. It always is.
It is. It's always Memphis.
Yeah.
But you said earlier it's a confusing name, and that's because of Apple Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a new thing. Apple Intelligence can now summarize notifications for you, and that's been a real problem for people.
Yeah, it's been a problem for Apple too. So when this first rolled out, there was some pushback. The BBC sort of got credit for it because I think they were the biggest organization that pushed back. But particularly in news stories, Apple Intelligence would sort of summarize things and get things exactly wrong. There was a very famous case of this where someone who very famously was accused of a crime, it like summarized it as if that person had died, and that's not what had happened at all. Like it was the opposite of the news. And so they actually turned that off the beginning of this year. They just like disabled it in iOS 18. But in iOS 26, they've sort of revamped it. So now when you turn this on, you get categories that you can enable Apple Intelligence summaries on. So news and entertainment, communication and social apps, and then all other apps. They're the three categories. And I think that's a pretty reasonable way to manage this. Like, you know what? Maybe I don't want news to be summarized by Apple Intelligence, even though it's better than it was a year ago. But maybe that's okay for communication and social apps. You have some options there. I will say it's very funny, like walking back through this flow in iOS, how many times this user interface says beta. Like it's like they're very clear, like this is not done, like it's still improving. And I don't use any of this. Like I have, like you, really pared down my notifications, and I have felt this way forever about AI summarized content. I just feel like I end up reading it twice. And so I have this off, but I'd love to know how you view this and if you're using this at all anywhere.
I turned it all on just because I want to see it and how it's going, because of what I do for a living. But I don't have any news apps giving me notifications. And that's, maybe you can call me, disconnected or whatever. But I I just, there's not any news that I need in the moment.
Same.
And that to me, news for me is like, I'm not too susceptible to social media apps. I don't get caught up in those, but I can get caught up in the news. So I try to protect myself by not having them interrupt me. But I do see it all the time where it summarizes messages, and it's sometimes helpful because, the problem is if somebody sends you a long message, the little notification isn't enough to let you know what's going on. The thought behind it is, well, what if we could summarize a 50-word message into, 6 words in the notification to give you an idea what they're asking for. And often it is helpful, and sometimes it's hilarious, so it's a work in progress, but I can see where they're going with it. And I think they should continue work on it. I expect as Apple Intelligence gets better and they get better local models that the problem will largely go away. And summarization for notification is a problem that should be solved, I think. And so they're working on it.
Yeah, it's definitely better. I had it on during the towards the end of the iOS 26 beta cycle, and like it is noticeably better. And of course, you can also have those like within messages, within mail. Some other apps are offering it now.
I mean, it does the same thing with phone messages, which I think is helpful. When someone leaves me a long message, because my phone so often goes straight to message, getting a summarized, looks like I'm looking at my phone right now and I see a couple messages summarized here from people who left me messages, and I can tell immediately which ones are spam and which ones are actually something I need to deal with. So I'm not gonna make fun of this as much as the general consensus is right now, because I do think it's actually made progress, and it's a problem I'd like to see solved.
And you can, to Apple's great credit, I think, in addition to those categories, you can turn them on and off per app. So like for me, and again, because of what I do, I did not want Overcast notifications to be summarized because it was like very weird, like combining 2 tech podcasts that didn't make any sense together, or just those I want to see. So I went in there and I could turn summarization off. Same with like maybe my home alarm app, right? Like if my home alarm is going off, like I just want to see what the company's sending me, right? I don't need Apple Intelligence to be a filter there. So you do have the ability to turn individual apps on and off beyond the category level.
Yeah. And if that wasn't enough, there's another category called priority notifications. And that is where it's the double secret probation of notifications, right? It's where you're saying, okay, this developer, even I'm going to have a priority flag, so maybe it even can bust through on things like focus modes when otherwise it would not.
Yeah, and you can tell it like in that section of Apple Intelligence prioritize notifications. You can tell it what apps, like you can give it indicators of what apps you want it to prioritize. And so those are at the top of the list on the lock screen, and you can scroll up and see the others. I don't have that on either. Again, I think you and I are doing a good job at managing what comes into our phone, where I don't need that additional level of filtering. But I know people who swear by this. I definitely have people in my friend group who rely on this and who like it. So I find that interesting.
Yeah,
that's some top level stuff. Some other kind of, I think, other options you should know about. Obviously, you have the style of notification. So, is the banner temporary or permanent? Can it make a sound? Can it badge the icon? Boy, I have very few apps that can badge. Very few. And then a newer one in the last couple of years is show on Mac. So where you have the feature in Mac OS to allow notifications and live activities from your phone to show up on the Mac. This is excellent for apps that don't have a Mac version, or like maybe my phone's in my pocket or on the charger and something comes into my phone. I want to see it on the Mac. You can change that per app. I have that on for a couple of things, and I really like that feature. And some long time follow up. I finally got my live activities to show up on my Mac. I think I said this in maybe our iOS 26 episodes where I just couldn't get that feature to work, and 26.1 just fixed it for me. I don't know how or why. It wasn't in the release notes. I never even heard widespread issues about it, but For whatever reason, what was going on in my world, 26.1 fixed it. And so now if I have a sports live activity or carrot weather live activity, they're the two that I use the most. They show up in my Mac menu bar, and it's pretty great. It's a pretty good feature. And then, of course, you have some things we already mentioned. Can they be announced? How are they grouped? And then for some applications, the Apple Store app is an example of this. You can have notification settings in the app that are basically like deep linked here. So for the Apple Store app, okay, maybe I want notifications on, but just for order status. And I do not want notifications about sessions or announcements and offers. No one should have that one on. No one needs announcements and offers from the Apple Store app.
All right, can I go down a rabbit hole here?
Please.
Apple does too many sales through notifications.
Yes.
I'm disappointed. It's like I'm disappointed, Apple. You're the company that's supposed to know better. And I hate it when the App Store sends me a notification and it's just trying to sell me something.
I agree. The red badge and settings I have right now, because I bought a base M4 Mac Mini and it really wants me to add AppleCare, and it's a home server and it's never going to have AppleCare on it. It's like, just leave me alone. And sometimes you can turn those things off, but yes, I agree. And really, like back in the early days of the App Store, there were actually some pretty strict rules around sending what Apple called marketing notifications. So there's a sale going on in the Best Buy app. Hey, there's new levels in Angry Birds and an app purchase, whatever it might be. And for years, you would see this phenomenon online of someone screenshotting this and be like, it's against, App Store guidelines, whatever. That has been relaxed over the years. And it's really up to us as users to respond to those things, right? And the ability to swipe and turn all notifications off from an app on the lock screen, pretty powerful. Feels pretty good.
Yeah.
But I do wish generally that more apps had settings like the Apple Store app does, where, hey, maybe within this sort of application, like shopping, I think is probably the best example. Like, I actually do want some notifications, but maybe I don't want a bunch of others, right? Carrot Weather does an excellent job of this. We are working on an episode about the stock Apple weather and sports apps. So I've been using those apps now for a couple of weeks, and Carrot Weather has so many options around like what kind of notifications I want under what circumstances. And that's not applicable to all apps, right? Like if you're using you're using a calendar app, it's basically just going to send you notifications for upcoming events, right? But there are a lot of apps where they treat their different types of notifications as one thing. And I think it's more nuanced than that. And so I do wish more developers would spend more time thinking more carefully about notifications and giving more power to users to manage them. Now, that's not in the developer's best interest sometimes, right? If they are, right, if you are Amazon and a notification leads to engagement in the Amazon app, obviously you want to send them, right? If you're the New York Times, right, and you send breaking headline, whatever, like, the temptation is always to send more of them because then more people see your stuff. And as a user, you just have to push back against it sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's a bunch of the options. We mentioned showing on the Mac. Some apps can also show in CarPlay, so you can have that option there. CarPlay settings are like a kind of a different thing. There are some settings there where, for one, I think one of the most important ones is, if I respond to a message, do I want to hear the message before it sends? I had that off, and then I had an unfortunate incident where Siri heard something I didn't say. I was like, you know what? I just need to make sure that you heard what I think you heard.
Yeah.
And so,
when dealing with Siri, trust but verify.
Yes. Absolutely.
Maybe even don't trust and verify is probably the more accurate statement there.
That would be good.
Yeah, I can't believe you would let Siri just send it without verifying that.
I fixed it. This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Ecamm. If you're a Mac user who creates videos or podcasts, you need to check out Ecamm. Ecamm Live is the all-in-one studio built exclusively for the Mac, so it looks, feels, and performs like a native Pro app should. A bunch of other software in this category isn't native. It's kind of janky. Maybe it doesn't understand all the cool multimedia stuff that's built into macOS. Well, Ecamm does. So whether you're live streaming, recording a podcast, or producing training videos, Ecamm gives you broadcast level control with drag and drop simplicity. Switch cameras, share your screen, cue overlays, and control audio, all without ever leaving your Mac. Like I said, Ecamm is an excellent citizen on macOS, and that's one reason I absolutely love it. And you can build these broadcast level videos. So you can pull in guest interviews, you can record multi-track audio for post-production work, you can show titles, graphics, and lower thirds. And if you're into automation, it works beautifully with tools like the Stream Deck and Loopback, as well as many others. You can upgrade to Pro and unlock Ecamm for Zoom, letting you feed your polished setup straight into Zoom meetings or webinars, share Zoom comments on screen, and even capture participant audio and video separately for post-production work. To get 15% off, go to ecamm.com/MacPowerUsers and use the code MPU15. That's 15% off at ecamm.com/MacPowerUsers, and then the code MPU15 is what you want. Our thanks to Ecamm for their support of the show and all of Relay. Do you have anything else for notifications that you would like to see changed?
I am generally pretty happy with them. I do think that, like, just looking at the example earlier in the show today, if I had gone into the Best Buy settings, there was probably a thing in there to turn off advertisements, but instead I just turned it off entirely. Maybe in that swipe, I'd like to see the swipe even get a few more options, like to slice the onion thinner. Although it's very good as the way it is. Another thing I would like is a way to easily see all applications that are badging. If you go to the app library, you'll see duplication. Like you'll see, like the Notion app, I allow it to badge, but then it shows up in a couple different places, so I get confused when I look at it. If I could just have a simple list, because to me, a badge is very, very limited.
Yes.
I get, like, my initial response to seeing a badge on an app I didn't expect is anger. It's like, why are you yelling at me?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want this. And so I would like a little more like ability as a user to go in and filter for specific types of apps that are doing specific types of filtering. And then you could perhaps edit them as a group, because it's kind of a pain in the neck to go through each one and change settings. But that is a level of abstraction in the interface that I think Apple would probably never do.
Yeah. And really my complaints around the notification system are sort of that same level. Like the abstraction layer can be a little bit confusing. So you have settings and notifications that those are global, and then you can go into each app and change their settings to be the same or different from those defaults. And for instance, I honestly didn't know that you could set content previews on a per app basis, because it's way at the bottom. And so I like your idea of like, hey, show me all the apps that can announce. Show me all the apps that can badge. Show me all the apps that have priority notifications on, or time sensitive notifications, which stay around for an hour on the lock screen. Because you can end up in a place where things are a bit messier than you expected. I agree with you. I don't see them doing it. But I really appreciate the fine-grained control that we have. But I think it's at a point where it's a little overwhelming to some people. And I think a lot of people honestly don't manage them at all. I think most people just like let notifications roll in. I mean, it's just like, pay attention. Like next time you're with somebody and their phone's out, on the table or whatever, like people get all sorts of notifications, right? The news ones drive me crazy. Like I don't need them either, but a lot of people just let it rip. And
yeah,
I think these tools are good, but I think Apple needs to find ways to make them more approachable at the same time.
This would be an excellent problem to be solved by a brain transplanted Siri. Like if I could have a conversation with my phone and say, hey, let's talk about notifications and have a conversation about, what's important to me, what isn't important to me. Like, I don't want to see notifications from news apps and then have Siri in the background go and turn those off for me.
Yeah.
Or, that I think that would be something that could be accomplished with a functioning AI. And, we're theoretically not too far away from this improved Siri. That's the kind of problem I'd love to see them take on. Like setting up focus modes and dealing with notifications would be a great thing for that. Because there's a lot of abstraction in the settings. The AI would know them, and as a user, I could just tell my general preferences, and it could probably get me there.
Yeah.
So there's something. Let's see that.
Yeah, just better ways to manage this stuff, to even understand what it could do, right? Like, just a lot of options in there. I think something else that would be interesting. I put this in the Notion, and I'm not actually sure it's a good idea, so maybe it'll just be a conversation point. Notifications are per device, and I think that's good, right? I want my phone to act differently than my Mac, for instance, with notifications. Do you see any benefit at all to Apple saying, hey, these are global? Like, yeah, the apps are going to be different across devices, but like the way that you treat reminders on your phone optionally could be the way it's treated on your Mac and your iPad as well. Do you see any merit in that?
I would use that for a setup. Like I've got my phone dialed in on notifications. I get a new iPad. I would turn on sync so the iPad matches the iPhone, and then I would turn it off, and then I would go from there, because I'm more restrictive on an iPad than I am on an iPhone. And I'm even more restrictive on a Mac than I'm on an iPad.
Yeah.
So I would not want them to sync permanently. I can, from Apple's point of view, I think I could see where that could be really confusing for users, and they'd be upset. Like, hey, wait, why am I not getting this notification anymore? Well, you had sync on and you turned it off on your phone. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but I get where you're coming from on it, because it's always a pain in the neck to set them up.
Yeah.
Like on a new device.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably mostly a bad idea, but in thinking about this, I had that thought of like, as I was turning things off on my phone, I was like, actually, my hierarchy is the same as yours. I'm most permissive on the phone, even though that's not very permissive at all, I think, compared to the public.
Yeah.
The iPad is less. The Mac is even less. And then the watch, which we haven't even touched on today, is even less. Like, I got like 4 things that can ping me on my wrist. And like, if I get a notification on my watch, it is important, right? Like, I just don't have a lot of stuff going there. In fact, my advice is to people who get an Apple Watch for the first time is turn off, go through the notifications and turn a bunch of stuff off, because by default it mirrors the phone, and they're different. I think there's fundamentally different devices.
And like when I look at my wrist, I want it to tell me the time.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating when you look at it and it's got an hour-old notification.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed. Notifications, I think, are more difficult to kind of wrap your head around because of the number of options than focus modes.
Yeah.
But I think if I were to give you one tip, I would say, don't get hung up on it too much. Go through your notifications and use the swipe and the options button. Instead of just skipping past notification you don't care, just take the moment to deal with it in that options button, because you can do that without digging into settings on your phone. And very quickly, your notifications will become pretty flowers and not a lot of weeds. And it doesn't take long. It's advice I need to follow myself. I obviously went through and cleaned it out because of the show. But if I were doing this on a more regular basis, I feel like I would be even happier with my notifications.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some sort of review system is good from time to time.
Yeah.
I want to close out with sort of a special category of notifications, which are like government and emergency alerts. And this will be different depending on the country you live in. But if you go to settings and notifications and scroll way to the bottom, way at the bottom, you have, in the US, at least, you have 4 types of government alerts. You have Amber alerts, right? So that's the Amber system. If a child is missing or it's thought that they've been taken, right? You get a Amber Alert. Hey, look out for this car with this license plate with a child of this description. Is generally within your geographic area. I know in Tennessee, this may vary state to state, and I may have this wrong, but like I used to see them for like all of Tennessee. It's like I'm not in Knoxville. That's 8 hours away, but it feels like it's more local to me now.
I love Amber Alerts. The concept of it, like if my kid was taken by somebody, I would love to know there's a system where everybody in my community knows and is looking out.
Yeah.
I take those seriously when they come through.
I have them on for the same reason.
Yeah.
But you can turn them off if you don't want them. You have emergency alerts, and you can have them play a sound. You have public safety alerts. That's just a toggle. If you look at Apple's documentation on this is kind of like up to your government and where you are. It can involve imminent threats to safety or life, extreme weather conditions, other public safety alerts that, again, are available in your country or region. And then you have test alerts, which I have off only because the state of Tennessee, they did one of these years ago. And then there was like a follow-up of like, oh, that was like an accidental test. And then they sent that as an emergency alert. I was like, okay, you cannot be trusted with test alerts. Like, that's off.
Lost the right.
Sorry, Tennessee. And then you have enhanced safety alerts. And these are a bit newer. These include, at least here in the US for me, earthquake alerts and imminent threat alerts. And so there's this very funny thing that happens on social media, and I'm Central Time, so if there's like an earthquake, like in the morning, like all my West Coast friends are like, earthquake, 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 all over social media.
Yeah.
But you can have earthquake alerts. This is actually also important to me. Like Memphis is on a fault line, so I have it on. And then you have imminent threat alerts. Again, this is mostly up to like your local, regional, state, national government of what an imminent threat is and when they push that alert. But there's also a toggle in here to improve alert delivery. So this shares your approximate location with this notification system at Apple to improve the timeliness and reliability of those enhanced safety alerts. And so in here, in this support document, Apple talks about this. And they give an example if for earthquake alerts received on an iPhone in California, Oregon, and Washington, including border regions, they may be delivered more quickly when you have improved alert delivery on, because your approximate location says, hey, I'm in this area. And so I have that on as well. I mean, I have location services on for lots of things. I trust Apple with that data. And if I'm going to get an earthquake alert, like, I'd like that to be as accurate as possible. So those are some of those safety alerts. And even the earthquake one, there's actually 2 levels of alerts they can send. So there's an awareness alert, which is like, hey, this is detected nearby. You should prepare if something else happens. And then an action alert of like, hey, there's going to be a big earthquake here. There is a big earthquake here. You need to take immediate action. Now, I think sort of famously, if you pay attention to this stuff, you don't always have a lot of warning in these situations. And so I appreciate that there is some nuance to this in Apple's system. And just like, I pray that no one ever sees any of these alerts, but I have them on, and I think it's reasonably responsible to have them on.
We had an earthquake alert, I think about a year ago, and I was in my little studio here, and the easy move would have been to just go out the back door into the yard, but Daisy was asleep upstairs. So I hauled it upstairs to see if she's and we did have a small earthquake. So it works, and that's pretty cool that we have that. A few seconds can really matter.
Absolutely. It can be life-saving amount of time. That's the same reason I have like critical alerts in carrot weather, right? If my location is in a tornado warning, it's time to make sure the kids are awake and we're downstairs, right? And so I view these sorts of notifications as, yeah, like you pray you never see them, but they're important and they can be important in a very, very short period of time. And so I'm glad they're here. And I'm also glad that we have some control over them, right? Like the test alerts, like Tennessee can't be trusted with them. So I don't get test alerts anymore. But the others I view as something that I want. And you've got some control over that now. So I think it's an important thing to be aware of. And again, it's going to be different where you live. If you're outside the United States, you may not see all of these, or you may see additional ones, right? It's very location dependent. But I think at the very least, you should be familiar with what's available to you.
Just thinking generally about this whole episode, I really do believe that your phone is a critical communication device and tool in your work. And I think using notifications and focus modes, the tools Apple's have given us, with just a little bit of time investment, you can dramatically improve their effectiveness for both of those things. So if you've made it this far in the episode, take some time this week and play with these things. Set them up and make them work for you. Doesn't take that much time. You're listening to Mac Power Users, you're going to be able to do this no problem. And it can really dramatically improve the quality of life with your electronic devices. So check it out. We'll wrap up there. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. Thank you to our sponsors today, 1Password and Ecamm. You can sign up for membership for more power users at relay.fm/MPU. That's where you get the ad-free extended version of the show. Today I'm going to be confessing my new bit of gear I bought, but we always have something fun to talk about. Get the ad-free extended version of the show right there. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.